Identity theft continues to be a big problem for many people. On today's episode of Friends Talk Financial Planning, we're going to talk about steps that you can take to protect yourself from the bad guys. Hi, I'm John Shear, and I run a fee-only financial planning practice in Middleton, Wisconsin.
And I'm Bridget Sullivan-Mermel. I've got a fee-only financial planning practice in Chicago, Illinois. And before we start talking about the recent scams, please subscribe. It helps other people find us on YouTube. So, John, let's talk about the most recent scams that we've seen and also that we're hearing about. And how to prevent them, right? So it seems like big, the old favorites are still there, but that there's specific vulnerability because people are concerned about the information that the government has about us. So talk about what you found about protecting yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting as you say that, right? The old classics still play well, right? There's some
Yeah,
things
right.
haven't changed, but there are some things that have changed. And one of the things that we've been hearing about is people having problems with online access to the IRS and to Social Security, where bad actors come in and set up an account in your name, and now they control access to your records, and that can cause all kinds of problems.
Right.
And so what we recommend to people is to set up, even if there's no need to have an online account at the IRS or an online account at Social Security, we recommend setting up accounts in those places just as kind of a protective moat, right? Just to keep the bad actors out, not necessarily because anybody needs to use those at any given point in time, right? There's a lot of people that don't. I didn't have an SSA account, Social Security Administration. I learned about them. I'm like, man, I better just make sure that I'm the right John Shear, right? That nobody else can be It's hard enough sometimes. It can be a hassle setting up these accounts. Can you imagine if somebody else has set up an account in my name and now I've got to prove to them that I'm the real deal, right?
Right.
So that's one of the big things. And the government uses a firm called ID.me, and you can log in. You can have access to both accounts using that service. We recommend people do that, and also we recommend that you do it for your kids or grandkids as well. Right, so I've got
Mhm.
middle school age sons, and so we've opened up accounts for them because they've got social security numbers, right? They're still subject. It doesn't make any difference. The bad guys don't care how old somebody is. So,
Right.
so that's one of the sort of low cost, right? It's just it takes a little bit of time to get it set up, but it could be a big benefit if you're protecting yourself from somebody else having that information.
Right, and just keep good records so you can get back in there when you want to get back in
Yeah.
there. I also use it for my passport, it seems like, and I have
Okay.
global
Yeah.
entry. So, that all that is kind of under one roof. So yeah, I agree. I think that's great. I know I've had my Social Security account for a long time because I kind of am fascinated with going in there and looking at it. I don't know. It doesn't
And I'll,
change
I'll
that
tell
much.
you, I haven't paid attention to it much, but when we have to make estimated payments for taxes,
Right.
you go on the IRS website, you can just pay, and I can't remember the terminology, you pay as a guest or something
It's
like
EFT.
whatever. I just want to
Yes.
pay the
Yeah.
thing. I don't
Yeah.
want to go through the account setup and blah blah blah. And like, oh, wait a minute, I want to now. I do want to have that account set up, right? So it is useful for some things, but it's easy to overlook that. And there's again low cost, and why not have that little extra layer of protection?
Yeah, makes sense. Another idea, I am sticking with one of our old favorites before we go on to talk about something that neither of us had really heard about before. And that is making sure you look at your credit card and bank statements monthly, even if not more, because I've heard that credit cards have gotten locked down enough so that more of the fraud is coming through banks right now. I don't know if that's true or false. That's just what I heard. But making sure I take a look at my bank statement, making sure that I recognize all the charges, same with my credit cards. And you know what? I have to admit, like I buy a lot on Amazon. And so I don't necessarily add up every Amazon charge. There could probably be a false one of those. But I look at them and see if I recognize them. Okay, is this? I don't necessarily check my receipts to make sure it's exactly the same as my receipt, but I do a reasonableness check to see. Okay, does anything look off here? And in the last, it's been within the last year, I did find something. Oh, it was 2 years ago. So that was a drag.
Well,
But
you think back in the old days, right? In the last 20 or so years, credit card usage and debit card and whatever, Zelle and Venmo, those sort of things. But remember, it used to be where you wouldn't even use your credit card unless it was worth a certain amount, right? Like, oh, it was sort of embarrassing to have a $5, $10, $20 charge. It
right,
was like, oh, if I'm buying I don't know, a TV or something like this, then you'd use the credit card. And life is and you'd get statements right in the old days that they didn't come on the internet because there wasn't the internet, or it was just starting, right? It was AOL dial-up sort of things. And so now, when you get the statements and it comes in the mail, you go, oh, like I'd probably at least take a look at it. Now, when it's just I can get it whenever I want to, or there's an email and yeah, it's easy to delete and click, right? We just don't pay attention the way it's easier to not pay attention. There's some good things, right? All
right,
my payments go automatically. I don't have to worry about forgetting to write the check to pay off the credit card. But at the same time, then I'm not forced to look at it like we used to. So for some of us, it's like, no, it's sort of changing those habits, right? And paying attention to that stuff. Simple. I love that, right? It's again the old classics, not fancy, but that's what
right.
helps protect you.
Yeah, I know it's not fancy. It doesn't cost anything. Not glamorous, but it's a good one.
Effective.
Another thing that you like, more than you've got more experience with this than I do, credit freezes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a one. So for me, it's the IRS, those accounts, looking at your statements and then freezing credit. It used to be that it costs money to freeze credit, and there was a giant process to get in and out. Now it's free to freeze your credit and unfreeze your credit. And you can, if you need to have it opened up, it's usually a phone call or an online quick, hey, give the car dealership access to my credit records for a couple of days. And what it does, so a lot of the fraud that we see and are probably familiar with are somebody got my credit card number and charge stuff,
Right,
right? But the other side of it is, what if somebody opens up a new account in my name? I might not even know it, and I have heard stories. We haven't had clients have this situation, but somebody opens up and charges $10,000 and they make the minimum payments. What's the minimum payment? $100 for a little while. Now, 2 years from now, it shows up on my credit report that I owe $15,000 to whoever. Now try to explain to the credit card company why that's not, I didn't do that, right? Easy
right.
to dispute a charge. We go, listen, I didn't pay, so and so for this, and you go to Visa or whoever it is, and they unwind it. But when you've got a whole new credit a card opened in your name or a vehicle or all these sorts of things. So for us, and we do the same thing for kids too, Bridget, is I've got my credit freezes on the boys. My kids have social security numbers, so we encourage people to freeze their credit and for their minor kids as well. And you don't like that, is it? You're not as big of a proponent of that necessarily, right?
I think it's a little more complicated than maybe what it's worth. So, but I have a complicated name as well. So, I think, it's kind of a weird thing to say, but the person that I knew that was getting a lot of this like false credit cards had a very common name, Joe Smith, whatever. That
Right.
wasn't his name, but that was, it was very common. And so it was easy to get that. And also, I know how it is for me, and it's hard for me to keep track of stuff. So I try to make it more simple, and I don't do this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But I do keep track of my credit score. One of my
Uh,
credit cards tells me every month kind of what it looks like. And so I do look at that.
and that's another
Yeah.
thing maybe to put out there is that everybody has access to a credit report, so you can get one credit report per year, right? For free.
Per place. There's 3 credit reporting agencies, and
That's
so
right.
you can get one from each place. Yeah. So that's a great way to look at it too.
Right.
Yeah. And then, oh, here's the new one. Neither of us had heard of this one, and that is medical insurance scams. So people get your medical card and then start they go to rehab with it. And then you get the bill for the rehab. I'm using an extreme example, and but it evidently it's on the rise. So that's another one to be more conscious of than maybe what you would have thought before.
Yeah. And you think about there's the dollars involved with something like that, but also just having something potentially on your medical record,
Right.
right? And think about if somebody needs a drug that costs $1,000 a month, excuse me, and but so they use your pharmacy card and now they get it for $10 a month. a big deal. How does it affect me necessarily? But now there's some whatever diabetes drug that's on my record. So if I go to apply for long-term care insurance, or if I need to apply
Right.
for health insurance or life
Or
insurance,
life insurance, life insurance. Yeah.
or it somehow gets into my record at the doctor's office on things, right? I mean, there's all kinds of things you go like, oh boy, that's that having false information on your medical record, I mean, I mean, theoretically, it could be
Right.
deadly, right? I mean, so
Right.
just those sorts of things where just being smart about that medical information was one of those that I hadn't certainly thought about. You start thinking about it, you go like that could be a
Yeah.
real thing, right? And
Yeah.
apparently it is because we've read a lot about it, right?
Right, exactly. The alerts were about that. And they were from government agencies, which really collect a lot of data and then send out alerts. So I believe it.
Yeah.
All right.
I think
Sounds like a good
Well,
place to wrap it
I
up,
don't want to
John.
bring up the other thing talking about the classics is when you get emails, right? If you don't recognize things, don't click on links. It happens, and you think those are going away. I see them all the time, and
Yeah,
especially
they still
around this
can.
time of the year with taxes, right? The IRS will never send you an email, right? So don't if it comes through and it's
Try to
scary,
get
it
it to
looks
send it to me.
good, right? But no, again, just those basics is don't click on anything that you're not familiar with the sender.
Well, also another tip I wanted to mention is people who are especially vulnerable could be, like, say, sick or just unable to deal with their finances, maybe temporarily, maybe permanently. And so,
Yeah.
if you're helping somebody that's in that type of situation, they're sick or just not able to deal with it for a while. Helping them, doing these things for them would be a help
Yeah.
because they're more vulnerable. I think that the thieves prey on people who are in these vulnerable situations and might not be as vigilant as they usually are.
Yeah, no, that's a great pointer on that. And with that, let's wrap things up here. I'm John Shear. I run a fee-only financial planning practice in Middleton, Wisconsin.
I'm Bridget Sullivan Mermel. I've got a family financial planning practice in Chicago, Illinois. John and I are both taking clients, and you can find more information about that in our description of the program. But also, if you're looking for an advisor near you, we're a member of acplanners.org, or the Alliance of Comprehensive Planners. So you can check out that to find out more information.
And don't forget, hit that subscribe button.